Hi, Woods of Odin here, responding to I like Newman, transgendered people, he, she, it. I know I said I was taking a break, but I liked your video and I wanted to add a point. Um, One thing I've encountered with people who, well, quite frankly, I think it's prejudiced, or or just misunderstanding, just a misunderstanding that is carried over just from the culture. And in the culture, I mean, I know you and I are from different cultures, but they're very, very similar. So I think a lot of people are being steeped in the cultures that we live in, carry a lot of misunderstandings that they haven't thought about. And so thinking about gender in terms that aren't binary can really confuse a person. Um, and I really do wonder at uh, our cultural ideas of gender, because even physically, there are people who come out in between. There are people who come out both, and unfortunately, there are still, at least in the United States, I don't know if it's different in Great Britain, but in the United States, there are still situations where children who are born as hermaphrodites are when they're very, very young, babies are surgically altered to to look like a quote boy or a quote girl. And when how did I get on this? Anyway, when they're teenagers, they're going through puberty. They end up having a lot of issues, not just because they are both in a culture that only accepts one or the other physically, but internally. Sometimes the doctors just kind of guessed the wrong one, whoops, or they feel like they are both inside and they don't look like they're both anymore. Or, as you can imagine, the message that they got is, well, you're one thing, you are what you are, but that's not acceptable. So we're going to treat it like a problem and pretend it doesn't exist. And when somebody's going through puberty and they're thinking about issues of their body image, their gender, their role in society with the opposite sex or with the same sex, etc., they're going to be like, damn, fuck you people. Okay, and so, even physically, people don't come out either one or the other in every case. And yet, people are immersed in a society that says people are one or the other. Period. End of story. And the inside always has to match the outside. Sorry, that just doesn't work. Now, at this point, and this is just me, and I'm not judging anybody else, I have come to consider myself pangender, as well as pansexual. And by that, yes, I consider myself internally like I would be much more comfortable if my body had come out male. But it just didn't get that far in development, and I just kind of came out female physically. But at this point, I personally have come to understand gender as something imposed upon by the culture rather than, you know, how do I say this? More than something you can actually set your watch to. And in some cultures, I might be as feminine as any other woman. And so it may not be any sort of, I don't know, may not be my internal feelings, I guess you could say, may not be at all unfeminine. But in another culture, I may be considered completely on the male end of the spectrum. And I've come to realize that internally, I can alter my own mind drastically. And I can assume any identity I so desire. And some people will say, well, but transgendered people ultimately, um, Good God, this is... I don't have all the terminology. That's why this is so frustrating. That's why I'm stumbling over my words. But yeah, there is a sense of, but inside I'm one thing and outside I'm another. Okay, but for me it's come to be like, well, inside I'm everything, even if I always end up kind of falling back to sort of an effeminate male spot on the spectrum. But I really go all over the place. So pan-gender, gender queer, whatever. Um, Now, getting back to the topic. Yes, this is how I take a break from YouTube. I'm going to bed after this. Anyway, getting back to the topic, one argument I've come across from my own mom, and unfortunately it's a very ignorant argument, is I can't see it, therefore it doesn't exist. Okay, so radio waves don't exist because you can't see them. Brilliant. The human mind doesn't exist because you can't see it. You might say, well, you can measure radio waves. Well, yeah, measure the human mind. A sad person isn't sad because you can't see the sadness. Measure the sadness. And if you're going to say, but the human mind has effects, we can see architecture and books of philosophy. Okay, we can see somebody down in the dumps. Sadness. We can see its effects. Okay. But we can also see the effects, and this isn't in every case, of course, but we can also see the effects of people whose internal genders, whose identity, do not match the body that they happen to come out with. So on the one hand, I am really frustrated when I run up against dumb arguments like that, but on the other hand, I understand that I'm dealing with a person who is just, like all of us, really steeped in the ideas of our cultures, no matter how erroneous. And I'm going to sit here for a minute and not talk so that this doesn't cut me off early. So thanks very much for listening. If you did, Auf Wiedersehen. And now I'm gonna crawl in my hole and do a bunch of fucking projects and whatever, and just do my own personal stuff and do some personal work that I need to do.